Welcome to Vin and Mike, episode 27. Now, Mike, we are now live there as the last few weeks. How you doing?
Vinny, your voice was up an octave on that one. I love
Was it? I'm guessing I'm extra excited because we are now part of the Pigskin Podcast Network, TPPN. So we're really excited about that. Thank you to all our fellow podcasters out there on the network that we've had some conversations with, and the bosses over there at the Pigskin Podcast Network that have been like really helpful, and just it's been a really good ride so far with them, and we're happy to be part of it. You know,
I was just thinking about, we were kind of talking about this right before the show, how this is episode 27.
Yeah,
and we have kind of our routine down and the music and the intro. That first episode, how awkward it was when I abruptly hit the mute. If you go back to our first episode on YouTube, you'll see how awkward it was, just the transition, the intro, where we were going with it. But a lot of people tune into that just to see where we started. So
it's definitely a huge change in the way we did things. I had the show backwards. The intro was all messed up. It was a fun disaster, but it got us started, and I think we've improved every week as best as we can, and try to bring the best show that we can to everybody. And that's what we're doing. So it's been good. For those that don't know, we're also have our own website now. So vinandmikepodcast.com. You can go right there. It has all the shows on there if you want to just listen to them, like on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music. It's all there. And then our YouTube is connected there as well. And then there's some other features on there that you can check out. So vinandmikepodcast.com. Even though we're part of the Pigskin Podcast Network now, we're still on KKFI out there in Kansas City. So, we still got that going on. And we're still partners with Viggy Bets. And Vin and Mike is still brought to you by Viggy Bets. If you check out Viggy Bets now on Twitter and Instagram at Viggy Bets, you can DM Viggy right now and that you're a fan of Vin and Mike and receive a 14-day free trial with a new VIP membership. He does all the kinds of handicapping, and really good handicapper when it comes to DraftKings, which we'll be talking about a little later on in the episode. But let's start off with our good friends here in New York, our Queens and Bronx buddies there, as they're still rocking and rolling here on July 12th, both in first place. A huge win last night for the Mets. Max Scherzer back on the mound for them, 54-33, 3 games in the loss column over the Braves now. Big series for them this week, with the Braves. I think we're in a really good spot for the Mets here. If they can figure out a way to win a couple more and just propel themselves into All-Star break with a really big lead in the NL East and get themselves prepared, for the National League. DeGrom is starting to come back. Oh. It's looking really upside here for the Mets as we move forward. So, Mike, some of your thoughts on what you've seen?
No, it's been awesome. You talked about this as far as the potential of getting to the Subway Series. What's really exciting is they had that West Coast road trip that they were successful. And then this series against the Braves, opening up and having that win was crucial. This is a Brave team that really came out of nowhere. They won 14 straight. They've been phenomenal. And Scherzer was unbelievable, but I don't want to discredit Edwin Diaz, the closer. He's been on fire. I mean, he may be the best closer in the league right now, what he's done for this team. So the Mets, I mean, this was huge. And as you said, Vinny, you have to win against these kind of teams, especially ones that you're competing with. They've been getting Brandon Nemo's been playing great. Lindor, not just his hitting, his fielding has been unbelievable, making smart plays. This is an exciting team to watch, and as we continue to do our broadcasting, I really hope that we could see the Subway Series because it would be amazing.
Yeah, you're right. It's it's definitely a really, really exciting time. Like I said, there was no June swoon. I keep mentioning that we're in the middle of July now. No June swoon. Everything is on the upside here for the Mets. Yankees 61-25, 36 games above 500. Well in hand. I think the American League East at this point. I think a lot of people have already seen that. The big concern, of course, as a Yankee fan and as Yankee Nation is looking at is definitely the Astros. We've
Without a doubt,
we lost 3 out of 5. So you worry about that. You worry about getting no hit in Yankee Stadium. So there's those little things you worry about. You worry about Verlander in a short series, and so there's all that. But I think Cashman is going to make a move here. I think it's either going to be for another outfield bat, or now potentially it wouldn't be surprised at a starting pitcher, because I think we're starting to see a little bit of the innings and the pitches catch up to some of these guys that haven't pitched a full season in a long time.
Right.
I think you saw Telan is starting to fall off slightly here. Cortez has slowed down a little bit. We know Cole, what we're going to get out of him. I think Montgomery's been mainly solid. We'll see as Severino keeps going, but he's been great so far. But you worry as time goes on, and I think that's why you might see Sears come up and fill in and make a 6-man rotation, or even like a Clark Schmidt. But I wouldn't be surprised if Cashman goes out and looks to add maybe one more starter, just to, beef up that starting rotation. And I think it's still necessary, as, even though Gallo gets a big hit once in a while, and it's very once in a while, and Hicks has on and off, but it's definitely on and off. And I think you still worry about having somebody in that lineup, as an outfield bat.
Oh, 100%. I just want to say, too,
Yep.
with Hicks and especially Gallo, if the Yankees were losing and this team was just not in a good position like they are, this would be discussed much more. But it's kind of thrown under the bus because of the way they're winning. And as we discussed, that this is a team that doesn't even have someone who's batting 300, that different people are stepping up every other night, pretty much every night, to provide this team with their winning record. But if this was a different case, especially in the New York media, forget it, right? But my question to you, Vin, is, if being Brian Cashman, do you think that he's going to go with an outfielder or a pitcher? What is your honest take on that?
I wouldn't be surprised he goes with both. He pulled. We needed a lefty bat last year, and he pulled Rizzo and Gallo out. Right, he went and got two of them, and I thought that was a huge move last year. For the team, and we see how important Rizzo is to this team this year, and I think I'm glad that they were able to sign him. I know they were going after Freddie Freeman and potentially a trade for Matt Olson, but I think Rizzo is just that temperament and that kind of guy for this team. I think he just fits in well. He reminds me of, the Tino Martinez, Paul O'Neill kind of player that played for the Yankees, and he just fits in really, really, really nice with this team in my opinion. But I think ultimately they're going to concentrate more on the outfielder. I think they feel that they have enough starting pitching. Like I said, I just worry a little bit about what I'm starting to see as a little fall off. And again, maybe All-Star break helps guys get a little more rest. They're able to stay home for a bunch of days, sleep in their own bed, all the little things that people forget about when you're playing baseball and traveling on the road, and things that impact pitchers and players. And you're able to stay at home and relax and do all that. Maybe that'll be something that helps them. But I think Cashman will keep definitely an eye on that. And like I said, J.P. Sears was phenomenal in the times that he's been up. I know they sent Clark Schmidt down to stretch out, so potentially he could come up and fill in as a starter. So maybe they go to a 6-man rotation after a certain point in the season just to keep everyone healthy, or maybe like Garrett Cole, on start, and everyone else, in a like a 6-man rotation kind of style, because we know how Cole is very animated to make sure his routine stays exactly the same as I think he wanted to kill Billy Crystal before a game for throwing the first pitch at her. So we know how he is. But yeah, I mean, there's not too much to complain about at this point. As a Yankee fan, you're just like I said, you're waiting. At this point, it seems like for October to get here to stay healthy, right? That's a big thing. You're worried a little bit about Rizzo's back and Judge's calf and Stanton as a whole. So you're worried about those little things, but I think Boone's been doing a pretty good job of managing their days off.
Without a doubt, you see different people. Yeah, I mean, he's doing an outstanding job with the substitutions and who's in, who's out with that.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's winning cures everything, right? Everybody could kill Aaron Boone about this and that, but when you win 61 games at this point in the season, no one really cares who you're substituting and who's playing.
Do you remember in the beginning of the season, Cole struggled just a little bit at the very beginning, and everyone was on his ass and Boone's ass, like, oh yeah, so that's New York for you, that's why this whole Gallo thing is just undercover right now, right? But they absolutely have to make these imperative moves to compete with the Astros for sure. So you get a couple more people, you'll be right there, and they'll do it for sure.
Yeah, I trust in Brian Cashman to make the moves. I don't know if you saw this, but Pete Alonso is going to compete
for
the third time. He's going to go for a three-peat. I'm guessing this year he won't be like a plus like 900 on DraftKings to win the Derby. I would expect him to finally be the favorite. Last year he wasn't even the favorite as the returning champ, and it was a really good bet for people that were betting that home run Derby last year. Definitely got some good odds on him this year. Last year, this year I would expect it to change. I didn't look to see even if it's out yet, but it's potentially a really interesting bet there on DraftKings. But yeah, I mean, it seems like it doesn't bother his swing. Judge is not competing in it because the year that he did, he had an awful second half. It ruined his swing a little bit.
So he's not going to go that route.
A lot of guys don't like to compete in it for that reason. Griffey Jr. always competed in it because his swing was his swing, no matter if he hit a home run or not. His swing never changed. So he never tried to hit home runs when he hit home runs. So he was always a very unique player. I tell you, we talk about players over the last like 20, 25 years. It's hard to find a guy that you would say is better than Ken Griffey Jr. in that time frame. I don't know what you think of it.
It was amazing. It was amazing to watch him play.
Yeah,
and I love when he played with his dad.
Yeah, in Seattle.
Yeah. That was a nice thing to see.
Yeah, now LeBron will be playing with Bronny in the Garden.
Oh, you wish, Vinny. We'll see. We'll see how the Knicks screw that one up.
Oh, that's hysterical. By the way, did you see Whit Merrifield, the infielder on the Royals, just his 553 game consecutive streak came to an end. So it's basically a 3+ years. You got to throw in the COVID and all that, but basically 3+ years of consecutive games, right? And you think about that, and you go, wow, that's pretty amazing. To play every game for that amount of time. But then you think back and you just reflect on Cal Ripken and the amazing streak that he put together. And I know you have a bunch of facts on it, and I'll let you read those. But I just think about how incredible that time was every time that he showed up. And I know he talks about one time where he hurt his ankle in a game, and he came out, and the next day they had an off day. And he felt if they didn't have an off day, that he probably would have missed that game, and the streak would have ended at that point. But he luckily got into a day off and felt better the next day and continued that Iron Man streak, right? I mean, it's just an incredible streak, and I'll let you talk a little bit about the facts of it.
Yeah, I looked up some facts, but when I saw that stat, Vinny, you think like 500, whatever it was, 30. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment. It is.
Yeah.
And then you look at Cal, it's just like absolutely incredible. When I think baseball, to me, because 162 game season, you have to have so much stamina, right? Because you're playing back-to-back days, sometimes double headers, right? Whereas in other sports, you have like a day or two off, right? But baseball, you really play a lot of times consecutively, so that's why it was so impressive. Uh, here's some crazy stats about it. How long is 2,632 games? That total alone is more than all but 27 Hall of Fame pitching position players logged in their entire careers. It's more games than Babe Ruth played, excluding his time as a pitcher. I mean, that's incredible. Ripken played alongside 150 Oriole position player teammates in the field during the streak, with Brady Anderson 1,283 playing the most games of anyone other than Ripken in a fielding position. I mean, it's just crazy. Ripken played shortstop and third base over the course of the streak, and that spanned 781 other players played at least one game, either at shortstop or third base. Ripken had the most at shortstop with crazy 2,289 games. But the one that I just had to read again because I looked at it like 3 times was with the magical night at Baltimore's Camden Yards. Oriole stars surpassed Lou Gehrig as baseball's Iron Man, but it wouldn't stop there. Ripken eventually played 2,632 straight games from May 30th, 1982, September 19th, 1998, before taking a seat on the bench. And then people don't realize that he also played 8,243 consecutive innings, shattering the previous of 5,152. I mean, that's all I could say. It's just truly incredible, those stats. They're mind-boggling.
To play that amount of innings is unbelievable. I mean, it's just unbelievable because he not only did he play in all those games, he played all 9 innings in how many consecutive games there? Whatever. 8,000.
Right. It's a consecutive innings. Yeah.
It's almost 1,000 games of playing every game. It's like 6 years of playing every game.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. I mean, every game.
I know.
6 years of it. So yeah, it was pretty cool to see that Mayfield did well, but it just brought back some reflection on our end, and we felt there was something to discuss for our audience to check out a little bit more about
those stats. Yeah,
I mean, it's just amazing. First ballot Hall of Famer. All the little things that come with that. You think about that Hall of Fame, and only Mariano Rivera got in unanimously. Who's the guy that voted against Cal Ripken, right? Or the guy that voted against?
Or how about Derek Jeter too?
Well, that one guy we know he hit. He's hiding somewhere up in Boston, but we know that. But again, Cal Ripken. I mean, and we didn't even go into his MVP years and World Series and all that stuff and all the other things that come along, with it. And how do you even think about not saying he's a Hall of Famer? I mean, just that longevity and being able to play baseball at such a high level for that amount of time. That's just totally incredible in my mind. So. And what's incredible is what's going to happen in Carolina with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, as they announced. I think it was today. They're gonna have a little open competition there for the starting quarterback. So things are gonna heat up in Carolina. What do you think? You think Sammy D can take it over Baker?
I'd be shocked. I think this is Baker's starting position, but I'm glad at least they're giving him the opportunity to at least battle each other. But it would be, I mean, after everything Baker's been through and not get the starting role, it would be awful. But I think he's a more talented player than Sam Darnold, and again, I think most people would probably agree that this is his starting job. I guess right now, if they're in a competition, it's his starting position to lose right now. I just can't see it from Sam Darnold, who's had mediocre seasons, whereas Baker, he really, as we talked about last show, he was able to take a team that was in the cellar and really provide them a great culture over there and winning ways, and I think he could do potentially the same in Carolina. You agree?
Yeah, I think it's Baker's job. I think they came out and said that just to save face with Darnold. I don't think they want to alienate him. I think they want him as their backup, and if they have Baker just come in and give him the starting job and don't give Darnold an opportunity,
Right.
I think it stirs up a little bit of controversy and trouble for what they're looking to accomplish. And I think one of the things they want to accomplish is to have a good backup in Darnold, and then they have Baker as a starter. I think that if I'm correct, they're both free agents at the end of the season, so they can make a decision on which way they go at that point. I think whichever guy doesn't win that starting job, and if they don't get an opportunity, I think it's going to be very, very hard for them to find a spot next year. The quarterback position is very stacked right now.
Yes.
In the NFL, we've seen how hard it was for Baker to get traded. We know Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't thrown yet, is what I've heard. So I don't know if teams are waiting to see how he does physically with his throws and how strong his arm is. But there's not too many open spots for him. We'll see what happens with Watson in Cleveland. They haven't, no decisions yet on any kind of suspension or any discipline at all yet on that end. So we'll wait and see with that. But, what other opportunities are going to be for Garoppolo at this point? People have said Seattle, but again, I don't see an interdivisional trade like that happening. And it seems like Seattle is just going to roll with Drew Lock and Geno Smith. I've heard Houston, but I think Lovie Smith likes the kid Mills. I think the team likes him. I thought he did a really good job for a really not a loadedly talented team that they had. So I don't know if they want to even disrupt that card at all. So
I think he's staying with the 49ers. I do.
He possibly could, because maybe they're not again, I keep saying this, and it could be behind closed doors. Maybe they're not 100% confident in Trey Lance right now. Right. And they think they have a Super Bowl roster. they think they're built to go to the Super Bowl. And they have a very good roster. They have a very good chance the way the NFC is right now. So I think they see that. And if Trey Lance is not performing to the level they need him at, I think that's, why they want to keep Garoppolo around. At least that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
So. All right. So, we're doing this great new partnership with the Pigskin Podcast Network, where part of it is having a really good sponsor in DraftKings, and the action never ends at DraftKings Sportsbook, especially this summer. Right now, DraftKings Sportsbook is giving new customers a risk-free bet up to $1,000. Wow. That's right. Make your first bet up to $1,000, and if that doesn't win, you'll get another shot to cash in. I wish I didn't have my DraftKings account right now.
Nice.
You can throw down all the major action for baseball, golf, MMA, and more. They got same-game parlays, as we know, spreads, money lines, over-unders, all kinds of prop bets, a lot of fun stuff. For me, I've been looking at the Open Championship. Rory McDonald right now, plus 900. Scotty Scheffler, plus 1,400. And then Tiger Woods is going to be playing there at plus 6,000. So imagine taking that risk-free $1,000, putting on Tiger, and you win 60 grand.
How about the Jets to win the Super Bowl?
There you go. You got all kinds of good bets out there. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Make your first deposit and get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code TPPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. So, yeah, we're happy to partner with DraftKings here, and a lot of fun stuff. And,
just another thing. I love DraftKings. I mean, I think it's one of the easiest apps to use. It's they got so many good things on there. So I'm really glad that they're our partner now. It's very exciting for the show.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we've been talking about it for a while on a lot of shows. It's the one app. Is our go-to app. It has been for, I would say, since New York started taking betting in January, and I know since you've had it out in New Jersey, it's been the one book that you really like to use as well. So it's awesome. But with all that said, we like to dig into some old time sports. It's one thing that me and Mike like to talk about is certain things that are going on, especially this time of year where it's a little quiet in your overall sports market as we start getting into All-Star break, and basketball is a little quiet right now, and the NFL has not started, and we're really excited for all that. And we're going to get into all that as we get closer to training camps opening and all that. But as we're sitting here and we're in the middle of July, and one of the things me and Mike were talking about the other day were the bad boys and the Pistons, and how they're built and how the league changed over time, and I think they had a lot to do with that. I think the NBA realized that star players were potentially could get hurt, and one superstar, the greatest star of all time, Michael Jordan, was specifically targeted by this team as time went on. But before even all that happened, I think this team was incredible, and they did things to end the Celtics dynasty and the Lakers dynasty to boot, right? And I think that has a lot to do with it. I know, Mike, you basketball is one of your major sports that you love, and I'd like to hear some more of your thoughts on this bad boys team.
I'll tell you, 80s and 90s basketball for me was the best, and this is a team that developed. I mean, they really were going back to the 83-84 season. I remember just watching clips. They played the Knicks in the first round. That was a Knicks team that had Bernard King, and it was a 5-game heated series. Now, the Knicks ended up winning that series, but you knew that the Pistons were really developing into something that was going to be a 2-time NBA champion. What I was really impressed about with that team is just defense, the defensive intensity, and how they scared opponents. And you said it great, Vin, that they had to get past the Celtics and the Lakers, and we got to put other teams there like this. Back then, the Sixers. Even like the Knicks had very strong teams, and you had every team back then had some kind of superstar representation. Even going back, like if you watch the 30 for 30, and I recommend our audience does, that championship, they could have won back-to-back championships because they were in it in 88, but there was a foul call on Kareem, and when you look at that foul, it doesn't even look like they touched him. So that call really made the difference in that final. But what that team accomplished was incredible. A team with grit. Bill Laimbeer, tough player. No one really liked him. Physical. Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, unbelievable rebounder. Isaiah Thomas, right? It's just, and I could go on, but teams, they didn't care. And back then, the thing with the league now, Vinny, is that some of these fouls that were some of the things done back then, people would get fined for today or suspended for multiple games, right? Whereas then it was just, sometimes it wasn't even called a foul or just a technical. It's crazy what went on back then if you watch the highlights to what happens now. Totally different way of the game. So I think with the way the game was played back then, and how also the use of the center position, where it was nitty gritty back then, where a lot of the centers now they have more of an outside jump shot, where everything was inside, all the action was inside in the paint. So there were a lot more, people were getting hurt a lot more. And it was just a more physical game back then. And for a team like the Pistons to really get out of that, to beat the Lakers and the Celtics, who dominated that 80s basketball, and by the end of the decade be the champs, and also beat the Bulls team as well. Just unbelievable. And it's a great series to watch, 30 for 30, Bad Boys. I mean, that team was just special.
Yeah, and I think we forget to mention Chuck Daly, who put that together and instituted the Jordan rules, right? That's what they wanted. They wanted Bill Laimbeer and Joe Dumars and Rick Mahorn and John Sally and Isaiah to really rough up Jordan as much as they could. And then it just translated to other guys. Remember how much Larry Bird couldn't stand Bill Laimbeer?
He still talks about it to this day.
Or how Robert Parrish just whacked him across the freaking face and everything. And,
right.
Like you said, things that would have gotten guys suspended and, minimum ejected, but, nowadays suspended and all that stuff. It was just incredible, different way of the game. They made sure they took full advantage of the rules. The rules were in place, and that's what they went out to do. But I think people forget that the 88-89 team won 63 games. They were a very, very good regular season team. To win 63 games in an 82 game season, one of the top winning percentages of all time, right? And to go on and take that winning percentage and translating it into a championship just shows you how good that team was. And if I'm right, they had Mark McGuire, and we know how good Joe Dumars was. And I think one of the most underrated guys that I loved on that team was Vinnie Johnson. I thought he was great when he would come in.
Microwave.
Yeah, would just, right? That's it. He would just heat things up. He would just make three-pointers. It seemed like his shot was 11 feet off the ground the way he shot the ball. It seemed like a line drive kind of shot that would go in, but he was a fantastic guy off the bench for them. But they did have, Isaiah and Aguirre, from an offensive standpoint. It was Joe Dumars too. So it wasn't like they were just defense and slug people around. They were a really, really good offensive team as well.
And just think about this. Their starting lineup, you had Isaiah at the point guard, Joe Dumars, Aguirre, Rick Mahorn, and Bill Laimbeer, and then you had Rodman, Edwards, Johnson, and Sally coming off the bench. I mean, come on. I mean, that's just a full team right there. It was, I mean, there's a reason why they won 63 games.
No, you're right. They were a fantastic, fantastic team. It was just incredible to watch. I think about how Jordan had to even step his game up even more.
He said that in the offseason after that 88-89 season.
Yeah.
The Bulls lost to them in 6 games. And obviously, that's what the Pistons won the championship. And Jordan even said that offseason, he goes, I need to even work harder so we can get past these guys. And that's exactly what they ended up doing. I mean, the Pistons did win again in 90, back-to-back. But 91, the people asked what happened to this Bad Boys team. The Bulls got even better. Jordan worked harder. And those other players like, the Pippins, the Horace Grants, Pax, they all came together. Now they had that team. They dethroned the Pistons in the playoffs. And that is when the Pistons, and now it's talked about where they just left the bench with a couple seconds left. They didn't shake hands, and they just went to the locker room.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of theories on who did that in the series. And it looks like it was Isaiah. And that whole thing led to the Dream Team, right?
Yeah.
But it's just crazy how that one event in a couple seconds really defines kind of how people look at a legacy, where Isaiah Thomas was college and he played for Indiana, won in 81, the championship, came into the NBA, came into a Detroit team, was dead last. Like, they were terrible. They weren't even on the map. Turned that whole organization around. As a matter of fact, that series against the Knicks, Vinny, that he scored, I think, 16 points like in a minute 30 seconds. It was just something that was so unreal what he did and how he led. And he competed every game. He was tough and fierce, had a sense of humor, always smiled, but was so tough and fierce. But he is projected as, when they left that court, when the Bulls beat them, that's how that one instance is a way a lot of people look at him. And it sucks in a way, because he was a big part of that team, a big part of the 80s NBA competition. But that's exactly what happened.
Jordan blames him for orchestrating the whole thing. That's really what it comes down to. But this is a guy in Isaiah Thomas that is pretty good at ruining things, right? He ruined the CBA.
Ruined the Knicks.
Ruined his broadcasting career. Ruined his coaching career. I don't know. The guy, when you look at him and you look at his NBA career, he was a phenomenal player. He was fantastic. He had tremendous moments, did things in big moments, winning player, like you said.
Yeah.
But you take that moment of them walking off the court, and I want to say there was maybe 30, 40 seconds left, and not even acknowledging, the Bulls at all, not even shaking hands, wishing them well, all the right things to do. Right. And that's translated into a lot of downfall for him as time has gone on here. And it's just something that people look back on, and a legacy that's built on winning championships and the whole bad boys mentality and all that is now something that people, I don't know, I just don't think they relish in it the way they should. I think he should have been on that dream team, but I think because of
the incident and where it was in time, that's why he wasn't on it. It really did affect his legacy for sure.
Yeah, it does. It goes back to when we talk about sports and these moments in sports, and how 30 seconds can just ruin a career and ruin a player's legacy and all this stuff. And that's really what happened to him, as one of the top players ever. But I won't take anything away from what they did to the Celtics, to Magic Johnson's Lakers. They really, really stepped it to a totally different level. Yeah. They ended both dynasties. I know Bird and Magic were getting old, but somebody had to pass the baton on, and it ended up being the Pistons, winning the Eastern Conference and winning the championship, basically eliminating both teams at the same time.
Vinny, what it comes down to is respect, as you said. It's handing off the baton. And I'll give you an example of class. When the Knicks beat the Bulls finally in '94, now that was without Jordan, but I remember on the court, the Bulls came, they stayed and they shook the Knicks' hands. They were hugging because they know, the Knicks over the years in that rivalry was so competitive, right? That there was respect. And in a way, obviously the Bulls wanted to win. Of course, he played to win. But there was a respect for the Knicks moving on to that level after all those years of fighting with the Bulls and just not getting there, right? And all the Pistons needed to do that day, because they knew in a way, from the tip-off of that series that, their team was aging and it wasn't the same. It wasn't the same kind of year. They had injuries. They made changes. Rick Mahorn went to another team. There was just a lot going on there. And all they had to do was, you look at those 30, whatever it was, just to stay on the bench and shake hands. A legacy could have been totally different. We could have been looking at a different Isaiah Thomas, but that was really the downfall. That exact play was the downfall of his legacy and what people thought about him, because that was in '91, right? And then the Dream Team was in '92. So that incident was so close to that of course it affected it. Right? So the question, And that's the thing. Those Pistons teams, right, were incredible. But the most people in different generations, do they look at that, or do they look what they did to the Bulls that time on that court? How are the Pistons going to be remembered? Right? So you got to look at it that way. That one thing could really permeate reputation. So I don't know.
The big issue is the greatest player of all time is who you did it to. So when people look at legacies and all that, they look at Jordan first, right? And when you look at what Jordan accomplished on the court and what people think of him, and they want to see how they got there and all that. And, we always talk about how long it took Jordan to win that first championship from the time he was drafted and everything. And, they look at how he got there. And then this is brought up, and people don't really know Isaiah the way they know Jordan. They've heard of Isaiah Thomas, of course, these younger guys, but they hear of Jordan and LeBron and Kobe. Those are the comparisons. So then they see, what this Pistons team did, and then they go, these guys, they're just unsportsmanlike, and why would they do that? Why would they act, out like that? And ultimately, it backfired in their faces. And I think to this day, we're talking 30 years later, people are still upset about it, and people, talk about it in that way. And I think it takes a little bit of that bad boys, accomplishments away. But like I said, I want to talk a little bit about their play and all that. And I just think this was a team that played tough. Daly coached them so well. They were so well coached. He had such a good rotation of guys, and like you said, they had all the positions working. They had to play a center back then. They mixed and matched with Lambeer and Mahorn and Sally and Rodman, all kinds of power forward / centers, and mixed it all together and really accomplished a tremendous feat. And like you said, they almost beat the Lakers the year before.
They did. They should have won that. They should have been a three-peat team, hands down. It was a bad call. That's what it was. It was one bad call. They could have been a three-peat team for sure.
It's like those little things you look at, and it's incredible. Like I said, it was a different time for basketball. I think that went all the way into the 90s, right? With the Knicks and the Heat even. That was, that they played a similar kind of style. I think Pat Riley brought that kind of style to the Knicks when he took over, because he didn't have the Showtime kind of Lakers with Magic. He needed to bring a different style, and I think he brought a little bit of that bad boy Chuck Daly kind of style to the Knicks at the time, and changed the way he coached. And I thought he added that philosophy a little bit to them as well. So you see the influences of that team as time went on. And I think a lot of teams brought that. And I think a lot of players had that mindset as well. We're going to beat the flashy kind of player because we're going to play tough defense. We're going to rebound. And we're gonna make sure you don't come in this paint and try to attack our hoop, and that's the way a lot of teams played, and it was definitely a very, very exciting way of basketball for a long time. The one thing I dislike about today's NBA game, and I think I've said this, is I just think sometimes they're a little too friendly. But again, the rules are different and all that as well. Yeah. But I want to see these guys just compete more against each other. The guy Emmanuel Acho, he has that show Speak for Yourself on Fox Sports. He compared Kevin Durant to Halle Berry, saying they're not in for long relationships.
But see, we laugh about that, but. Just going back to those, that's funny. But going back to those teams, Isaiah spent his career with the Pistons, Magic, the Lakers, Bird with the Celtics. So, as much as we laugh about it, it's really true that the NBA has changed in that respect, right? So we want to see the competition. We want to see that continued competition and the willingness to win every game. And that's someone actually texted us a question, Vinny, about the Knicks actually, and it kind of pertains to Pat Riley. And they said, we talk about the pit. It said, Mike, you talk about the Pistons in the late '80s. What were the Knicks like, and how did they get? How was it for them getting into the '90s? Well, it's a great question. So, the Knicks, they were competitive in the late '80s for sure. Now you have to understand that Patrick Ewing was a rookie in '85, and this goes again about one player cannot make a difference. It takes a team to really unify them. The Knicks had a couple really poor seasons, and then Rick Pitino took over in '87, and this was a team they had a lot of different kind of players. They had obviously Patrick, and they had Kenny Skywalker that Vinny talks about in the draft, and they had Mark Jackson, who won Rookie of the Year, and Sidney Green, Bill Cartwright at the time. And that was another thing where Ewing and Cartwright were really playing together, and it seemed not to work. And that's why that trade the next season was so crucial for them, because the Bulls needed a center in Cartwright, and the Knicks needed a strong forward in Charles Oakley. And that next year, that's when things really gelled for the Knicks. They called them the Bomb Squad. So you had Johnny Newman on that team as well. Knicks were, they were a real strong three-point shooting club, but you added Oakley with the rebounding, and they started to really have success. They won the Atlantic Division that year, won against the Sixers, I believe, in the first round, and then they did lose to that Bulls team in '89. And then what happened after that was interesting, because you felt the Knicks really had momentum to compete with the Bulls and the Pistons, but they had some injuries, and they had a coaching change. Rick Pitino went on to coach college, as we know. Stu Jackson came in and did okay with them, and then Stu Jackson left, another coaching change. John McLeod came in the following year, and the Knicks weren't gelling. They were making bad plays. They started out very poorly. And then when Riley came in, as Vinny alluded to, that it was all about defense. It was also just every game the Knicks came to play tough. They acquired players like Xavier McDaniel and Anthony Mason, and really had that strong core defense. And that's how they really won games. It was just people feared the Knicks in those early '90s, just like they feared the Pistons in the late '80s. So to me, that team really took with the defense, they just took a different meaning in the NBA. And also, that team played the Bulls, I think in '92, when Riley's first year, and they took them to 7 games, which was incredible. No one thought the Knicks could do it. So again, those next 3 seasons were so exciting, because then the Knicks, they did lose to the Bulls the following year, and then in '94 made it to the finals. And then again, they were competitive in '95. But you talk about strong defense and fun to watch, and this is why we're hoping that the Garden gets back to that, the electricity at the Garden, which we haven't seen in years, right? So we're hoping that we get back. But that was a great question, and the person who sent that knows I love talking about Knicks and that kind of basketball. But man, those were fun teams to watch, and just seeing how teams really took the baton into the next step, and that's exactly what those Knicks did. So thanks for that question.
Yeah, no, that like to hear your whole insight on that. I was thinking about Xavier McDaniel as you were going through it, and you brought him up. What year did he join the team? Do you remember?
He joined in '91-92, Riley's first year, but then he was traded the next season, so he didn't last long, which I was surprised about. I don't know who he was traded for. I have to look back, but was surprised because he really fit the culture on that Riley's team. A really tough competitor, the X-Men, and he was awesome to watch. I mean, they played so well. It was a lot of fun.
And he was he with Seattle before he came to them?
Good memory. He was with Seattle. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. He was like a 2010 guy there, right? Like one time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. He was. I liked him a lot. I liked his. They, like you said, they had Oakley,
Mason.
Mason. they had like that tough guy kind of, again, that bad boys kind of,
Yeah, they were kind of in that category, sure.
right? Yeah, it definitely. And again, that's, I think when you look at sports and you look at teams that win the next year, and I think it goes for all sports, is that they're copycat leagues,
Right.
right? They try to find a similar formula that the team the year before, just won, right? And I think that's why you saw so many quarterbacks move in this offseason,
Right.
so many receivers move, because I think teams are looking for that next Matt Stafford Cooper Kupp combination, right? Yeah, it's like who's going to be that next guy. So, but not to regress away from the bad boy conversation. These are the kind of things that when we talk about them, and you think about all the things that play out of one team, and the history of just those years of them playing together, and how Chuck Daly built up that team, and where they went and won back-to-back championships, and all that. It's just a great history legacy kind of thing. And like we said, it carried, I think, the NBA even into those early 90s, all the way up into the mid 90s, of how teams play defense, how they defended, how they were tough, how they were rugged, and how they built their teams. And I think teams really looked at those bad boy teams, and it lasted for a long time.
It sure did.
I was to before we end, I was just reading something about today's baseball game between the Guardians and the White Sox.
Huh?
And I think about Tony La Russa, if the game has been passing him by, because I think this White Sox team, when you look at them, they're not playing up to the par I thought they were. But today, with an 0-1 count on Jose Ramirez, Tony La Russa asked for an intentional walk. I don't think I've ever seen an 0-1 intentional walk to a player. So I think the only thing I think could have happened is that he thought it was 1-0 and not 0-1, and decided to pass him.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of mistakes that I think go back to as the game passed them by. I mean, you have to know the situation as a manager. You have to know where you're sitting, and what you're doing, and to give an intentional walk for no reason makes like zero sense to me.
Especially an 0-1 count. Come on.
Yeah, I think he's just getting old.
Yeah.
Sort of like you.
Like me. Like you?
No, not anymore.
No.
But this is great, man. This is what we when we set out to do this in January, the idea was to have conversations about sports and what was going on, and talking the local sports and some national sports. And we're big football guys, so we really wanted to talk about the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl, and then go from there and just see how things progressed as time went on. And we had Antoine Staley come on from the Register Guard out there in Oregon, and we were able to talk about Thibodeau, and the Giants actually drafted him. So, that was a really good conversation. And then we got really lucky to have back-to-back interviews with Gus Frerotte and Richmond Webb.
How fun were those?
Those were great. Those were
with their insights, and just Gus Frerotte, just a true winner. Like, being on Washington, then going to the Vikings, just playing on different teams, and what he did and how he got there, to Richmond Webb, and just his stories about playing the Jets. And we were having that kind of commentary back and forth. It was just awesome. And stuff like that we'll have ex-NFL players. We had Renee Washington, who amazing ESPN reporter. Our close friends who share so much light on the sports that they love. And you know what? Every one of them brings something to the table, and it makes conversation so much fun every week. So and sometimes it's just us, and we could, again,
And
all the topics are great.
yeah, and again, I didn't think we would be at this point as part of a sports network, doing good DraftKings commercials, having a good partner in Viggy Betts that's been with us for a while, and all those little things that came up, and having our own website now, and being on Spotify and Amazon, and having an Alexa skills where you can ask Alexa to play our podcast, and that works. And I mean, all the cool things that have come along in the last 7 months, and I'm just really excited about this partnership, and being out there with them, especially football season starting, and then where the network as a whole is going, how Amaze Media, who's the parent company, is doing things that we're going to be part of that as time goes on. So it's just real exciting, as a whole, and I look forward to continue to bring better guests on, bigger interviews. We're working on a lot of that stuff behind the scenes. So just continue to support us, everyone out there, and bring your questions to the table. It's one of the things, by us going live, is that we're looking for is seeing what you guys want to talk about, and just ask everything and anything. If we don't know about it, we'll tell you, or we'll do our best to answer it the best we can. So, but it's been great.
Yeah, great day.
Been great. So, all right, I think we'll end here. And I just want to thank everyone for listening, everyone that's been watching us on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, and everybody that listens to us on all our platforms. And everybody have a great night.
Good night, everybody.